I'm Olivia Hamilton, 41, and I built our family business from the ground up alongside my parents. That morning, I sat in the lawyer's office and froze. My parents had removed my name. 12 years of work erased in an instant. But I wasn't finished. I remember standing in the lawyer's office, staring at the documents that changed everything. My name, Olivia Hamilton, had been completely erased from Hamilton Electronics, the company I'd spent 12 years building alongside my parents. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound I'd ever known. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father simply said, "It's business, sweetheart. Your brother deserves this more." My hands shook as I signed the acknowledgement papers. They thought I was weak, that I'd disappear quietly into the background. But as I walked out of that office, something hardened inside me. I wasn't going to fade away. I was going to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. 7 years seemed like forever, but I knew patience would be my greatest weapon. The first month after my removal was the darkest period of my life. I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by boxes of belongings I'd cleared from my office. Photos of product launches, awards, handshake deals, all reminders of what I'd lost. My younger brother, Nathan, had always been their favorite. He had the charm, the easy smile, the business degree from a prestigious university. I had the late nights, the innovative ideas, the actual work. But none of that mattered anymore. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces when they told me. The casual cruelty of it haunted me. But somewhere in that darkness, a plan began forming. I started making notes, mapping out possibilities. Revenge wasn't the right word. Justice felt more accurate. I spent weeks reviewing every document I'd ever signed, every contract I'd negotiated. That's when I found it, a clause in the original partnership agreement my father and I had signed 13 years ago. It stated that any founding partner who contributed to product development retained rights to intellectual property created during their tenure. My heart raced as I read it again and again. 3 of our best-selling products had come from my designs. My parents had overlooked this completely when they removed me. I made copies of everything, stored them in multiple locations. This wasn't just a loophole, it was my lifeline. I called an old law school friend, someone I trusted completely. "I need your help," I said. "And I need absolute discretion." Building a new network started with phone calls to people I'd worked with over the years. Former suppliers, clients, industry contacts, people who knew my work ethic and skills. I was careful never to badmouth my parents or the company. I simply mentioned I was starting fresh, exploring new opportunities. The response amazed me. Person after person told me they'd always valued working with me specifically. One supplier, Mr. Jameson, said something that stayed with me. "Your parents run that company like it's still 1985. You always had vision." These conversations planted seeds. I wasn't ready to compete yet, but I was laying groundwork. Each call built my confidence back up, brick by brick. Maybe I wasn't as disposable as my parents believed. 6 months after my removal, I invested my entire savings, $43,000, into a small electronics repair and customization shop. It was humble, almost embarrassing compared to what I'd lost. But I had a strategy. I focused on the exact market segment Hamilton Electronics ignored, small businesses needing customized solutions. My first major client was a local hospital network needing specialized patient monitoring equipment. I worked 16-hour days designing, building, testing. When I presented the final product, the director actually hugged me. "This is exactly what we needed," she said. The contract was worth $80,000. I called it Hamilton Tech Solutions, keeping my family name but making it mine. When word reached my parents, my mother called. "You're embarrassing us," she said. I hung up smiling. A year after my removal, I received an invitation to Hamilton Electronics' annual gala. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. I bought a new dress and attended, blending into the crowd of investors and partners. My parents barely acknowledged me, though Nathan made a point of flaunting his new vice president title. I watched everything carefully. The company had grown, but inefficiently. They'd expanded into markets without proper research. Their newest product line, something Nathan championed, was beautiful but impractical. I overheard clients complaining politely about delivery delays and quality issues. My father made grand promises he clearly couldn't keep. My mother smiled and networked, oblivious to the problems festering beneath the surface. I left early, my mind racing with possibilities. Their arrogance was becoming their weakness. I started documenting everything I observed about Hamilton Electronics. Not illegally, just publicly available information. Financial reports, client reviews, industry analysis. I noticed patterns they'd apparently missed. Their supply chain had vulnerabilities. Their customer service ratings were dropping. Their innovation had stalled. I compiled this information carefully, creating detailed reports. Then I did something strategic. I anonymously shared some basic industry analysis with their board members. Nothing confidential, just market trends they should have noticed themselves. Within weeks, I heard through my network that board meetings had become tense. Questions were being asked. My parents had no idea where the scrutiny was coming from. I'd planted the first seeds of doubt in the minds of the people who ultimately controlled the company. The beauty was I'd done nothing wrong. Hamilton Tech Solutions attracted attention from an unexpected source. Veronica Thornton, a venture capitalist known for backing innovative startups, reached out personally. "I've been watching your work," she said over coffee. "Your approach to customized solutions is exactly where the industry is heading." She offered to invest $200,000 for a 15% stake. I nearly choked on my coffee. This wasn't just money. It was validation. It was legitimacy. With her backing, I could scale up operations, hire a small team, pursue bigger contracts. When I signed the partnership agreement, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something real, something that could actually compete. My parents had no idea that the daughter they discarded was quietly assembling the resources to challenge them. Late one night, alone in my workshop, I broke down. The stress, the anger, the sheer exhaustion of proving myself again caught up with me. I thought about being 23, fresh with ideas, believing my parents valued my contributions. I remembered my father putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, "You're the future of this company, Olivia." What changed? When did Nathan's empty charisma become more valuable than my actual work? The betrayal felt fresh again, raw and painful. I looked at photos from those early days, me, my parents, Nathan, all smiling at our first trade show. We looked like a real family. The image mocked me now. But as tears dried on my face, I felt that familiar hardness return. They taught me that loyalty meant nothing. Fine. I'd teach them what consequences looked like. My breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. One of Hamilton Electronics' major clients, Westfield Manufacturing, contacted me directly. Their account manager mentioned me specifically. "We've had issues with Hamilton's delivery schedules," he explained. "But we heard you can customize solutions quickly." I designed exactly what they needed in 3 weeks, something Hamilton had promised but delayed for 6 months. When Westfield signed a contract worth $300,000, switching from Hamilton Electronics to my company, I felt vindicated. This wasn't sabotage. This was competition. This was me being better at the work I'd always done. When my father heard, he called me furious. "You're stealing our clients," he shouted. "No," I replied calmly. "I'm earning them." The satisfaction in my voice must have terrified him. He hung up without another word. The confrontation I'd been expecting finally happened. My parents arrived at my office unannounced, Nathan trailing behind looking uncomfortable. My father started immediately, threatening legal action, accusing me of corporate espionage. I let him finish, then calmly pulled out documentation. Every client I won had come to me. Every design was my original work. Every contract was legitimate. "You removed me from the company," I said quietly. "You don't get to control what I do after." My mother tried a different approach, suggesting we could work together if I'd just be reasonable. The audacity stunned me. Nathan wouldn't even look at me. As they left, my father grabbed my arm. "You'll regret this," he hissed. I pulled away. "No," I said. "You will." The certainty in my voice seemed to shake him. Word spread through the industry faster than I'd anticipated. Trade publications wrote about the rise of Hamilton Tech Solutions, contrasting my personalized approach with my former company's corporate stagnation. Former colleagues reached out, congratulating me, some even asking about job opportunities. My reputation, which I'd feared was destroyed, had actually grown stronger. People respected the comeback story. They valued authenticity over empty promises. Within 18 months of starting my company, my revenue matched what I'd been generating for my parents. The difference was, this was mine. Every success felt earned, not handed down or controlled by people who'd betrayed me. I hired my first 5 employees, all talented people overlooked by bigger companies. We weren't just building a business. We were building something that mattered. I decided it was time to make a formal move. I requested a comprehensive audit of Hamilton Electronics, citing concerns as a former founding partner with retained intellectual property rights. The legal justification was solid. My lawyer had helped me craft it perfectly. The board couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. My parents were furious, but powerless to stop it. The audit would take months, but I knew what it would find. Years of mismanagement, inflated expense reports, contracts awarded to friends rather than qualified vendors. Nothing criminal, but plenty that would embarrass them and concern shareholders. I wasn't trying to destroy the company. I was simply forcing accountability. The irony was perfect. They'd removed me to avoid oversight, and now I was bringing more scrutiny than they'd ever faced. Nathan called me, begging me to stop. I ignored him. A business magazine ran a feature story on my journey. The headline read, "From Dismissed to Distinguished: How Olivia Hamilton Built Her Own Empire." They interviewed clients, industry experts, even some of my employees. The article praised my innovation, work ethic, and integrity. It mentioned my removal from the family business, but framed it as their loss, not mine. When the issue published, I received calls from across the country, potential clients, investors, even speaking invitations. My parents' response was predictable. My mother gave a terse statement about family disagreements, while my father refused to comment. But their silence spoke volumes. The narrative had shifted. I was no longer the discarded daughter. I was the visionary who'd been held back. The recognition felt sweet, but I knew this was just the beginning. My old mentor, Professor Daniels from university, reached out after reading the article. We met for dinner, and he offered wisdom I desperately needed. "You're winning, Olivia," he said. "But don't let anger drive you to make mistakes. The final victory requires precision, not passion." His words grounded me. I'd been so focused on proving my parents wrong that I'd lost sight of why I started this. It wasn't about revenge. It was about building something better, something sustainable. We talked for hours about strategy, about when to push and when to wait. He reminded me that the best victories are the ones that look inevitable in hindsight. I left that dinner with renewed clarity. The climax was approaching, but I needed patience for a few more moves. There were nights when the weight of everything crushed me. Building a company while battling my family was exhausting in ways I couldn't have anticipated. I'd wake up at 3 a.m, anxiety gnawing at my chest, wondering if I'd pushed too hard, if I'd made mistakes. The loneliness was terrible. I'd lost my family. I had no time for relationships. My entire life had become this mission. Sometimes I questioned whether it was worth it. Then I'd remember the look on my father's face when he told me Nathan deserved this more. I'd remember my mother's cold indifference. Those memories were fuel. An old friend from college called just when I needed it most. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. Those words carried me through another week. The audit results started leaking to board members, and panic set in at Hamilton Electronics. I watched from a distance as my parents made increasingly desperate decisions. They slashed prices to keep clients, but that hurt their margins. They promised features they couldn't deliver, damaging their reputation further. Nathan tried to launch an aggressive marketing campaign, but it came across as defensive and insecure. Employees started leaving, including some talented people I'd trained years ago. A few reached out to me about joining Hamilton Tech Solutions. The company was unraveling, but not because I was attacking them. They were collapsing under the weight of their own poor decisions and the exposure those decisions now faced. The irony was beautiful. Everything they'd built on shortcuts and favoritism was finally catching up to them. My lawyer called with news that made my heart race. While preparing my intellectual property claim, she discovered something buried in old corporate records. When the company was initially formed, I'd been granted shares that were supposed to vest over time. My parents had never formally revoked those shares when they removed me. They'd simply stopped acknowledging them. Legally, I still owned 18% of Hamilton Electronics. My parents had been so focused on removing my name and title, they'd overlooked the actual ownership structure. This was the ace I'd been searching for. With those shares, I had voting rights. I had standing to call for board meetings. I had power they thought they'd stripped away. Can we prove this? I asked. Already have, my lawyer replied. The documentation is ironclad. Years of their arrogance had finally created the opening I needed. I exercised my rights and called for an emergency board meeting. The look on my parents' faces when I walked into that conference room was worth every sleepless night. My father tried to have me removed, but the board chairman shut him down. Ms. Hamilton has every right to be here, he said firmly. I presented my findings calmly and professionally. The audit results, the retained intellectual property, the ownership shares they'd forgotten. I didn't yell or accuse. I simply laid out facts. Board members asked pointed questions my parents struggled to answer. When my father tried to gaslight me, claiming I was misremembering agreements, I produced original documents with his signature. My mother looked pale. Nathan stared at the table. For the first time in 7 years, they couldn't control the narrative. Victory was within reach, and everyone in that room could feel it. In desperation, my parents tried everything. They offered me money to drop my claims. They promised to restore my name to the company. My mother even attempted tears, talking about family and forgiveness. I listened to it all with the same calm I'd maintained throughout. Then I made my counteroffer. I wanted full transparency in company operations, an end to nepotistic practices, and accountability for the mismanagement the audit had revealed. Not punishment, just fairness. The board members nodded approvingly. My parents looked stunned. They'd expected demands for power or revenge. Instead, I was asking for integrity. One of their longtime allies, a board member named Mr. Patterson, quietly approached me after the meeting. I should have spoken up years ago, he said. Your parents have been running this company like their personal kingdom. I'll support your proposals. The tide had turned completely. The board voted to restructure Hamilton Electronics leadership. My parents would remain as founders, but with significantly reduced operational control. A professional CEO would be brought in. Nathan was moved to a non-executive advisory role, and I was offered a position as Chief Innovation Officer, with full authority over product development, and my retained ownership shares formally recognized. It was everything I'd worked for, but accepting felt complicated. Did I want to go back? Could I work with them after everything? I asked for time to consider. That night, I sat in my office at Hamilton Tech Solutions, looking at what I'd built from nothing. This company was mine. No compromises, no betrayals, just honest work. The choice should have been obvious, but part of me wondered if rejecting their offer would feel like unfinished business. Everything accelerated after that board meeting. A major client, frustrated with Hamilton Electronics' instability, pulled a contract worth over $2 million. The chaos this created wasn't my doing. It was the inevitable result of years of poor management finally catching up. My parents tried to blame me, but the client made it clear their decision was based solely on Hamilton Electronics' performance failures. The company was hemorrhaging money and reputation simultaneously. Industry analysts openly questioned whether Hamilton Electronics could survive. Meanwhile, Hamilton Tech Solutions landed 3 new major contracts in the same month. The contrast couldn't have been starker. My parents' empire was crumbling while mine flourished. I felt no joy in their suffering, but I felt profound satisfaction in the justice of it. They'd thrown me away, certain I'd fail. Instead, I'd thrived. I made my decision and announced it at the next board meeting. I would not be returning to Hamilton Electronics in any capacity. Instead, I was launching a major expansion of Hamilton Tech Solutions, including a new research division focused on the exact innovations I'd proposed to my parents years ago, ideas they'd dismissed as too risky or unconventional. I'd secured funding from Veronica and 2 other investors. We'd be hiring 50 new employees within 6 months. The industry reaction was immediate and positive. Tech publications covered my announcement extensively. Several of Hamilton Electronics' remaining clients reached out, interested in switching to my services. My parents sat in that board meeting, watching me present a vision they'd once considered worthless, now recognized as brilliant by everyone else. Their empire hadn't just been surpassed. It had been made obsolete by the very person they discarded. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. My parents requested a private meeting, just the three of us. No lawyers, no board members. I agreed, curious about what they could possibly say. They looked older, tired in ways I hadn't noticed before. My father spoke first. "We were wrong," he said quietly. "About everything. About you, about Nathan, about how we ran the company." My mother actually cried real tears this time. "We let pride and favoritism blind us. You were always the talented one, the one who actually cared about the work." They weren't asking for anything. No deals, no reconciliation. Just acknowledgement. I listened, feeling emotions I'd suppressed for 7 years. Part of me wanted to reject their apology, to make them hurt more. But I was tired of carrying that anger. "I appreciate you saying this," I told them. "But I can't forget what you did. Maybe someday, but not now." They nodded, understanding. As I left, I felt lighter somehow. They'd finally seen the truth. I sit in my corner office now, 7 years and 4 months after that day in the lawyer's office. Hamilton Tech Solutions employs over 200 people. We're consistently ranked among the top innovative companies in our sector. I've been invited to speak at conferences, serve on industry boards, mentor young women entrepreneurs. Hamilton Electronics still exists, barely, after the board forced a merger with a larger company to avoid bankruptcy. My parents retired quietly. Nathan reached out recently, apologizing for his silence all those years ago. I'm considering rebuilding that relationship slowly. But the real victory isn't in their downfall or my success. It's in knowing I was right to believe in myself when nobody else did. It's in building something honest and sustainable. They thought removing my name would erase me. Instead, it freed me to become exactly who I was meant to be. They'll never underestimate me again. More importantly, I'll never underestimate myself.